Hi, good afternoon. It's magical, right? It's magical what we're going through. So a little bit about me. I'm Katherine Johnson, as Buzz said. I spend the majority of my time focused on research and talking to clients. Many of you are here now. I consider myself a futurist. Emerging technologies is something that I'm excited about. But you cannot really focus on the future until you figure out what's going on now. We can't really predict the future. We can theorize about the future, but there is no experts about that future. So as we look at the current state of the industry, it will help us get to the future. And if I had to give one word as to what the current state is, if I had to describe it, it would be convergence. And it's convergence of everything. Convergence of humanity and technology. Convergence, there we go, thank you. Convergence of humanity and technology. Convergence of our software platforms becoming portfolios. Convergence of our data giving us information. And convergence of huge technology enablers that are changing how we function today. And it's giving us the largest technical transformation in human history. This means that technology is exploding, doubling in size and capability every 18 months. With big game changers out there. And these are enabling technologies. So these themselves are not point solutions that you're going to buy, but these are the force behind those point solutions. So as you seek towards artificial intelligence, you're not going to buy an artificial intelligence. You're going to strategically employ this enabler. Utilizing these components together is going to provide a huge powerhouse. And it is changing us. It is what's driving our digital transformation. It's, once again, sounds so magical, but the people in this room are largely responsible for that. And while the majority of you are making decisions, the leaders in this room and the individual contributors in this room are making decisions on technology that we're not 100% clear on. It's very nascent. It's important to realize that as you move forward, you have to take the time to slow down and understand what these technologies can do for you. And understand how they're going to not only modernize your current systems, and we're not going to bifurcate legacy and modern applications and our architectures, but they're going to change the way you deliver to your customers. And in the digital arms race, where business is in IT and IT is in business, and we're all fighting to become more and more digital, we must keep this in mind. We will never be as digital as Google or Facebook or Amazon or Apple. And that shouldn't be the goal. Our goal should not be to be that digital. Our goal is to shore up what our digital constituents are demanding and what our analog companies are delivering. So it's how we're digital that makes sense. And that starts with understanding your customer. Magic just got done finished telling us that. Understand your market, understand your customer. And that means both your internal and your external customers, as they're going to help you make strategic decisions on how to employ and transform utilizing these incredible enablers. These are game-changing enablers, but if you just keep throwing them into your environments, you're going to have a hard time with them. And with the world getting smarter, everything getting smarter, our banking systems, our cars, our houses. My house is so smart that if my washer wasn't telling me that I needed to run a cycle on it, I'm not sure I would do it. I had no idea this is what I needed, but now I can't live without it. But for everything that's getting smart, we're going to need a lot of wise people. Because trust is something that can't be downloaded. Trust is this human emotion. And in order to serve your clients and to serve your markets and continually evolve, this is something that you're going to have to get intimately aware of, because the responsibility is of this room. So as business leaders, they're focused on their customers, but as IT leaders, are you? How many of you know that when you're deploying another piece of technology, what that's doing to the outcome, how that's impacting your customer? It's important to realize that your customer is incredibly savvy, and they're experiencing technology at a rate that is changing their expectations every single day. And now your customers are changing as well. Your internal customers you're entering into a marketplace where your internal customers are now coming in, never having lived life without Facebook. So their expectations of technology is incredibly different. And your external customers, the boomers, are now outnumbered by the millennials. So those predictive buying patterns are gone, and we're all in search of the bigger, better deal. It's hugely important. And so we must focus on how to digitally hit the sweet spot with our clients. Amazon, for example, a large global retailer, or so we would think, is actually not that large globally. They only make up single-digit percentage of the retail market. And that's because, for the most part, 90% of the retail market is brick and mortar. And so what was their answer? Convergence. Converging technologies that they know, applying some imagination and creativity. They've created the Amazon Go store, coming to cities near you, where you can walk into the brick and mortar store, you can select what you'd like, and walk out. No lines, no registers. And if you think about that from a technology perspective, everything that has to go into employing that level of smarts, that level of convergence, the amount of networking, storage, compute, so that it can understand when you pick something off the shelf and decide you don't want it, it won't charge you for it. And the convergence of data so that when you walk out of the door, your account's charged appropriately. It's a lot of smart people to get there, and a lot of creativity. And while your organizations are filled with incredibly smart people, the most powerful thing that you can have in your organization is some imagination and some creativity. Because coupled with what your business is asking for and where your markets are going, you can strategically make decisions on these enablers, creating true transformation. And I know what you're saying. You want me to know what my customers are, who my customers are, how many generations I'm serving, what markets I'm going to? I can barely keep things moving as it is. I'm still trying to determine how I'm going to get through this era of containers. We're still moving into DevOps. I'm still trying to get automation. I'm competing with Amazon, but I'm using Amazon. So help me get there, because I don't have time to figure out what my customers are all about. And I implore you to slow down. Because when the technology is driving your direction, that should be a pivotal moment. Because the technology is not what we seek, but how we seek it. And so these tools, while they're vital to us, and they'll help us figure out where we're going and employ that, they should not be controlling us. And so as we look forward to the future, as we focus on our legacy systems and prepare for our modern architectures, we in IT normally think of digital transformation as a euphemism for this change, for the modernization of your software architectures, for the way that you're going to move from waterfall to agile, from the infrastructure targets that you're going to soon to support. And some of you have created different groups that are trying to work on this, while your other groups are still focused on your legacy. But it's important to remember that at some point in time, they're all going to have to intersect. And so while you are looking at where this is going to live in the future, strategically making decisions on what your infrastructure targets are going to be is going to be huge for you. Because you cannot support all of them, because each one of them is going to require a different skill set. They're going to offer you a different feature set. They're going to provide you with the need for an ecosystem that may not translate to the other target. So currently in our legacy systems, everything goes into the data center. And we secure that data center and the infrastructure targets that are in it. But in the future, as our infrastructure targets change and the workload dictates where they should go, it's you guys who are the ones that can control that. And this is hugely important because each one of these targets and each one of those workloads, while they can be powerful alone, the power really does lie in the convergence and the integration. The integration is what is driving us to something that is even more valuable. And that is data. We used to say that really the only few data companies are out there that, Google is a data company. But that's not true. Every company here is a data company. And mining and refining, productizing and monetizing that data is big business, vital to your ecosystems, vital to the transformation. Your business leaders are depending on you to help make data-driven decisions as far as where your business is going, to de-risk potential futures. And that data is going to have to be clean data, free of bias, and readily available. So when you look at the targets that you're going to support, you have to focus on this component because this is the real gold. And data gravity is a true issue. And the more targets you support, the more data you're going to have to move around, the more integrations that are going to come, and you'll be unable to provide the business with what they need. But something else comes along with all this data. Not only is it fantastic what we can do with it, what we're learning from it, how we're driving consumerism at a new pace, but it also opens us up to more vulnerabilities. Changes what could happen to us. As things get smarter, as your house gets smarter, as Alexa starts to figure out that you have a cold today, and your new Amazon microwave won't pop your popcorn because, well, you stepped on the scale and it decided you weren't ready for popcorn yet. Or your toilet now knows your preference about how warm you like your seat and what your favorite songs are while you're in the thinking room. This is powerful information about who we are. And so governing this security is no longer just the responsibility of the security team. And the person who stands up and takes responsibility for it won't be the members of the security team. It'll be your business leaders. Because it's not just shutting down production. It's not just impacting what is creating our dollars. But with compliance and GDPR copycats out there, we are facing the potential of heavy fines. The CCPA, who are taking a cue from GDPR, promises to be even more expensive. And just last week, it was proposed that jail time should be considered. And your security teams are dealing with no shortage of trends, no shortage of changes. Those enablers are also the foe. Those enablers are providing adversarial networks with the same power they're providing you to change your business. And so security is not just an afterthought. It absolutely cannot be an afterthought. The risks are growing, and they're growing rapidly. And as business continues to be part of the technology discussions, as they choose targets for you or that you're unaware of, they're just widening the area. The surface area becomes wider. I just got an email from bodybuilding.com letting me know that there was a breach. Bodybuilding.com. I'm going to guess that bodybuilding.com wasn't super interested in making sure that my email and password were completely encrypted. And now it's out there in the wild. And I'm also going to guess that as you're transforming your environments, when you start to test that data or you bring in new integration fabrics, maybe that's not always encrypted either. And so your points of vulnerability continue to grow. And as you select your targets, this must be in the forefront. How are you going to secure those targets? Because every one of them must be secured. And not all of them are going to be secured in the same way. And they're certainly not going to be secured in the same way you're securing your traditional environment today. You are in charge of the future. You're in charge of the reactions of your users, the changing of your consumers, the good and the bad that happens with that data. So as we look towards the future in a connected world, there's a few things that I think are important as you move forward. We just got done talking about how Alexa's going to know if you're sick, or your appliances can tell you if they need a maintenance cycle, which is to say that privacy is dead. How many of you guys have done the 23andMe or Ancestry.com? So interesting with that, because there's not a whole lot of regulation today on what they can do with that data tomorrow. So the possibilities can become very scary. And as we continue to change the way we interface with our systems and our machines, this also needs to come into impact. Now we're getting emotions to it. Kia is working on a car that will figure out if you are having road rage. And then it will deploy countermeasures for your road rage. So you could get cold air in your face or a different song. When I learned this, I was thinking, my car would think I'm in a constant state of road rage. I live in Phoenix. This is the home of the distracted driver, home of the retired distracted driver. But voice search and voice capabilities are becoming huge. So they're saying, they, the body of they, are saying that by the year 2020, half of our interactions will be by voice. So when you're working on your search optimizations today, are they ready for voice? Voice is conversational. We've all learned how to Google search. We've all learned that we don't really have to type in the full question, a couple keywords. But for the most part, we don't really talk that way. If I want to know what year Silence of the Lambs came out, I'm not just going to start typing in silent. I'm not going to say silence. OK, silence of. Come on, hurry up. Silence. OK, fine. You know, this is not how I speak, but it is how I type. So as you optimize your search, you'll have to focus on this. And interesting as we move forward, because the 9 giants that you see in front of you are the ones who are largely responsible for the future of AI. Overwhelmingly responsible for the future of AI. They are creating and investing in technologies and converging companies to create their own frameworks that you'll be able to use. And they'll create a different version of vendor lock-in. Because once you start utilizing those frameworks, that'll be super hard to pull away from. Meanwhile, regulators are still going to continue to struggle. So as everything is getting smarter, we might see a slower adoption of some of those smart cities and self-driving cars. We've already seen it in Phoenix. We already saw it with Uber in their accident. We'll continue to see it. So lawmakers will struggle. It could slow the absorption rate down. It's not a technology problem, it's a people problem. And in the convergence of everything, The solutions that you use today, the giants that you use today, will continue to converge and they'll continue to evolve. They too are going through the same transformation. They too want to make sure that they keep you highly entangled. And so as you focus on your security, as you focus on where you're moving towards, you have to balance out the best of breed with your portfolios. Some companies employ the leave no vendor behind policy, which I like. Happy to help you with. But that does present you and your staff with challenges as you move forward in your tools, especially when you get about 25 to 30% implemented and decide to stop because it wasn't the right solution. Watch for these guys, how they'll transform. And with these things in mind, you can keep yourself from being underwater in the digital transformation. So as I leave you, I want you to keep in mind a few things. Making decisions on the targets and the technologies that you're going to support, first and foremost, come with a deep understanding of your customers and your environments. This is key because you'll be making strategic decisions about where to go next. And with strategic decisions and planning come desired outcomes. And everybody can work towards that. And in big companies or team sports, it's super easy to see what the outcome is. The outcome is winning. Or the outcome is getting the rocket into space. Or the outcome is going to Mars. But some of your companies are not that clear in those missions. And so even as IT individual contributors, it's helpful to understand what you're working on. It's helpful to understand how that shapes your environment. And it's also helpful with bringing in your tools. Because your tools are important, but they should not be dictating the way you function. DevOps is a culture. It's not containers. Blockchain is interesting, but it's just an enabler. So we must seek to understand the technology, at least at a high level. Many clients in this room that I've spoken to are asking about technologies that their leaders are asking them about. We have to employ digital twins. At the end of the conversation, do you know what that really means? Does your leader? It's important to seek an understanding of the technology that you bring in, at least at a high level. Find those trusted advisors that you can ask the questions to. Because if you bring something in, the impact could be devastating. And be aware of PowerPoint engineering. Super easy to engineer in PowerPoint. And since we've given all this data, companies have gotten really smart about what gets us to buy. And they've understood what it means to be a first mover. First mover is huge in every facet of our life. Think about it with the news. The first thing you hear, we tend to believe. The second and third, we're not so sure of. Technology is the same way. I'm going to pick on a large carrier for a second. How many of you have seen 5GE on your phones? Right? A lot. I fell victim to it as well. Oh my gosh, is it here? But it's not. AT&T is understanding that first movers, 5G. Can I get my PowerPoint back? Thank you. And so understanding the marketing, clearing the hype is important. And when you do decide to bring in those technologies, you cannot apply yesterday's business logic to today's technology. You should challenge all of the assumptions. Challenge your existing privacy policies. Challenge your existing security methodologies. Challenge your existing processes. Because you can't transform in one way without evolving the rest. And remember that Slower can be the new faster, and that's super difficult. Super difficult because the business is asking us to move at paces that we've not had to move before. So we're looking towards enablers to help us get there, like automation. But automation, in order for your automation journey to be successful, you have to go backwards before you can move forwards. You have to get the building blocks right. You cannot build on that foundation if it is not steady. So slower is the new faster. And remember that everything scales, even your failures. We are humans. Failures are a regular occurrence. The biggest of those digital giants make tons of failures. You will too. So in the future, please remember, technology is the creation of humans. And humans possess the most incredible and complex technology there is, your brain. Using your brain to observe, understand, imagine, and create, you are currently creating the future of tomorrow. I thank you guys for your time this afternoon. Enjoy the show.